Morning, it's the 30th of June 2024. Beautiful morning. You've got Dodgy Dave just coming in shot. Just want to talk about yesterday. Yesterday I was in Goldthorpe for the 40th anniversary event organised by Mel Hepworth, I believe, and his team. We had a couple of speakers. I'm going to upload them speakers. And then I was safe from there down to Mansfield to the Civic Centre to not striking miners 40th anniversary event. 300 people there, cracking event organised by Alan Spencer and his team. Loads of speakers down there. I'm going to upload them, so apologies if you don't watch them, you don't have to watch them. The message from all them speakers is nothing's changed over the years. It's still them and us. Everything we've had to fight for. Reform aren't going to change it. Tories aren't going to change it. I'm not sure if Labour's going to change it. The only people who can change it is us. And we're not going to change it by sat it down watching fucking television, unfortunately. But the first up is my old mate, and I made him an honorary Yorkshireman now, John Dunn, and he's speaking at Goldthorpe. So off we go. Have a great day, everybody. Give me a shout, Dave. Wakey, wakey.
Wakey, wakey!
Thank you, Dave. Sunday morning, that's just what you want.
Comrades, it's a great honour to be in the place that proved to the world what we really think of Margaret Thatcher the day that you burnt her effigy in that magnificent exhibition of what miners are all about. I wasn't here that day. I went up to Easington to celebrate with the Durham miners, and we didn't burn Margaret Thatcher. We did something a little bit different. We roasted a pig. So it made a pleasant change from being beat up by the bastards to eating one. But congratulations on what you did. And I think there should be one of them brown tourist signs as you enter, saying Goldthorpe, the place that burnt Thatcher, because you've immortalised that forever. It's still on social media. When I feel a little bit down and want to reminisce about the good times, it's one of the things I watch. And it gets even better with copious amounts of alcohol, I can promise you. So well done for that. It's a great honour. I'm one of the luckiest people alive, I think. I get to do, after 40 years, I still get to mix with the greatest class fighters on earth. People who stood tall, stood proud, never flinched, never bowed against everything that was thrown at us. The police violence, the rigged courts, the jailings, the terrible bail conditions. We stood tall, and so we should be proud of that. And instead of just remembering it, we've got to celebrate it. Because in this day and age, what union, what community could manage to sustain that for a whole year? And it's also a greatest privilege to stand alongside this great man who's come here on crutches because he still believes in fighting the fight and proving that all those years ago everything he said was right and has come back to haunt us. Still my leader in more ways than one, not just for what he did in the strike, but he had the sense before many of us to realise what the party formerly known as Labour was becoming. And he formed a party, the Socialist Labour Party, and I'm proud to be a member of that, with this man giving us all the inspiration. And just think, it was supposed to be the end of celebrating events like this. It was supposed to be the end of working class fight back, when Thatcher said she'd seen off the enemy within. And by the way, I'm still proud to be the enemy within, as I'm sure we all are. When she said she'd seen the enemy within off, there was supposed to, as I say, no fight back. Well, we're still here, and she's dead. The Iron Lady is rusting away. And remember, she had a state funeral given to her by a Labour government, so-called. And I remember they tried to pump it up. The media were wall-to-wall coverage of that event. Supposedly, thousands flocked to that there London just to see a coffin being driven round. The streets were empty. As Arthur will tell you, she was the most hated person in this country. And we should never forget, never forgive the likes of Thatcher for what they've done to our communities. They've ruined them. They've turned them into shells of what they once were. No jobs. And what jobs there are? Sweatshop factories. And look what goes alongside that. Everything that this great man warned about. 0 hours contracts. That's a throwback to the days when our ancestors would have to stand against a wall and hope they were picked for some work that day. So young people now have the equivalent to that, except they have to carry the phones about, waiting to see if some slave labourer organisation will give them a couple of hours work or a couple of days work that week. We've got food banks. We've got more food banks, can you believe it, than McDonald's outlets. More food banks than McDonald's. At least people are getting better food, I always say. What a tragedy when you think what we once had, the 6th richest nation in the world. And people are on the streets begging. I did a meeting on Thursday in Liverpool, fantastic meeting. But on the way from Lime Street Station to 400 yards to the venue, there were people sleeping still in every doorway. We don't build council houses. We don't have that social structure we had anymore. And that's the legacy of Thatcher seeing off the so-called enemy within. But I don't think we should be down about it. We've seen in the past few years our great movement at last getting up off its knees and fighting back. The only trouble is they're doing a day strike here, a couple of days there. It's hard to keep a momentum going. And I say, we did it for a whole year. They should look to us, instead of allowing successive governments to try and write us from history, they should say, if the miners could do it, we can do it. And why do we still have anti-trade union laws? You've got to give your employer notice if you want to go on strike. We've even now got a law that says if you go on strike, you've got to pick your own scabs to maintain minimal levels. How tragic is that? Thankfully, the train drivers union has left, and didn't they and the NUR do a magnificent job in solidarity in not moving a cobble of coal during that great year? But at least ASLEF have said, we're not providing you with scabs. And what happened? The employers backed down and said, no, we'll stop the trains. So trade union militancy is now on the rise. And that's why they bring in these laws. We've even got a law now that says if you go on a demonstration and make too much noise and upset somebody, you can be arrested. Well, there's no chance for me, is there? That's the situation. But why do they do it? They don't do it because they're strong. They don't do it because they think they're in control. They do it because they're scared of us. The memory of our great strike still haunts our political elite. We shook them to the core. We came so close to victories. And I'm sure Arthur will tell you how close we came. We came so close to victory on several occasions. We could have won, and the country and the world would be a better place for it. When you think about it, we fought on alone almost as a union. Yes, tremendous solidarity from rank and file people, raising funds, sending us food, keeping us going. And the miners' wives groups were an essential part of that. We couldn't have done it without them. And we should salute them for taking part, not being just passive supporters, but getting in, not just feeding us, but taking our places on the picket line. That shows what mining communities of either gender are capable of, fighting to the bitter end. And you know, we had to do it almost alone because we were sold out. The TUC, remember Norman Willis? Remember when he spoke with my great friend Peter Heathfield and somebody dropped a noose above his neck? I'm not saying what I thought should have happened to his fat, horrible neck. But it's they sold us out, refused to support us. But the biggest sellout of all, the biggest traitor of all, was the bastard Neil Kinnock. I have to spit when I say that name. Didn't spray anybody, did I? But we fought on, and we shook them to the core. So we celebrate that, comrades. And now, we don't just put our feet up. If somebody had ever told me, as a 32-year-old miner, and I hate it when people like Mel say, I was only 20. And then you meet people who say, I weren't even born during strike. I'm now 72, and I'm still doing it, and I still want to do it, because somebody has to tell present generations, when all our pits have gone, when we've been wiped out of existence, and our pits have become either massive, anonymous housing estates, slave labour trading estates, or the biggest joke of all, they've made them into country parks. You can watch documentaries on telly about people who move to the countryside. They should move to a mining village, because we're the only people that the countryside allegedly moved to us. That's how daft it is. And I think back to what we had, that community. Most of all, we had, they were rough, they were tough, they were hard, but they were thriving communities. People had money in their pockets. And as I mentioned now, They've tried to smash them. But thankfully, the same people that fought 40 years ago are now fighting to keep those communities together. And we should show them a tribute, because that's perhaps an even harder job. When everything's gone, when your library's shut, when your workforce is gone, when there's next to nothing, to keep that hope going and to keep the flame of 40 years ago alive is something to be cherished. And also, just think about it. The attacks on us go on. You know, we're still the enemy within. My organisation, the Augury Truth and Justice Campaign, is fighting for an inquiry into what happened on June the 18th. Not just because we think that's the only thing that matters, but our reasoning is, if you can get an inquiry into the most visible, most distorted event in British trade union history, then it'll open the crack and shine a light on what happened to every mining community through that long dispute. Those 11,000 of us that were arrested, those 7,000 of us, myself, seriously injured. We need to expose that, and that's what we're hoping an inquiry will be the start of. Now, we've had some success, because the party, formerly known as Labour, has put in their manifesto that they're going to hold an investigation or inquiry. We don't want an investigation. We don't want a tepid inquiry. We want a full, independent inquiry along the lines of the one that the brave Hillsborough campaigners fought for and achieved. Nothing else will do. And as for that party that I obviously now refer to as the party formerly known as Labour, can we trust them? Everything that Sir Keir Rodney Starmer promised us when he stood for election, having sabotaged the 2019 general election, is reneged on everything. Now, New Labour were in power for 13 years and never gave us an inquiry, carried on closing pits. So have I got any faith in them? I'll let you guess. But worst of all, successive governments have stolen our pensions. They've nicked billions of pounds from our pension scheme in what I call class war reparations. We're still paying for having the audacity to fight back. That money should be in our pockets, should be being spent to help keep our communities alive. This last year alone, they took almost £500 million from our pension schemes. And where does that money go? Don't come down to us. It don't trickle down. It's being given to the rich in tax handouts. It's being stashed in the Cayman Isles. Worst of all, it's funding weapons that are killing innocent women and children in Gaza. It's being sent to fund a proxy NATO war to fascists in Ukraine. That's where the money's going. Instead of us having it. So we want that money back with interest. We want to see every miner or their descendants reimbursed for what's been stolen from us. So we've got fights to do, comrades. We've got to struggle on. We've got to make sure that those injustices are put to right. What we've got to do is fight like we've never fought before, perhaps, because in the future there's going to be different battles to fight. It won't just be like the one that we fought in 84, 85. We've had 14 years of something called austerity, enforced poverty, with all the consequences of the things I mentioned earlier. That's going to continue no matter which representatives of our political elite are in so-called power. We've got to fight for a better world. The NUM, always, you look at our banners, peace and socialism, fighting for a future. We fought for this young generation now. And we've got to make sure that they learn to fight like we did. Else even more will be taken from us. And just as we were the enemy within, the government again are scapegoating people. The enemy, who are they? They'll tell you it's the sick and disabled, it's the unemployed, it's the unfortunate people in society. They'll tell you we can't afford for you to retire. The pension age, they're now talking about working till you're 71 years old. Anybody in here fancy being dragged out of a burning building, be a 71-year-old firefighter? And we're being told this by people who've never done a bleeding day's graft in their lives. So all I say is polish your picketing boots. Lend them to a new generation, if you like. Let's fight for the things that we believe in. Let's fight what we could have achieved 40 years ago. A decent world. A world where there's no poverty. Where the rich don't steal our funds. A world based on need, not greed. And I'll tell you something. I want revenge for what they did to us. I want revenge for those two great comrades who were murdered on the picket line with no investigation, no arrest. And you know, comrades, the greatest revenge we can achieve will be when we take power away from these bastards, transform society, and build one that's worthy of the name socialism. Solidarity, comrades.